Hi, I'm Jason Hooper, and welcome to another Fix Your Gut live stream. As always, I'm here with John Brisson.
Hope everybody's doing fine. Glad to talk to y'all tonight about an important subject.
I want to thank you guys for watching. I want to thank you guys for your support of our live stream and the website fixyourgut.com. As a special thanks to all of our YouTube subscribers, we're giving away every week. We give away some Unfair Advantage from Upgraded Self. It's the premier mitochondrial support supplement from Upgraded Self. It's good stuff. It comes in this awesome little package that kind of unfolds like a monster's mouth, and you get these nice little caplets, and you bust them open, and it tastes great. Tastes a lot better than GABA Wave. From what I've heard, the new glutathione supplement tastes a lot better than the old one, but they, to my knowledge, have not improved GABA Wave as of the taping of this show. But anyway, Unfair Advantage. Make sure if you want to win some Unfair Advantage, make sure that you set your account to public so that I can see you, and that you accept incoming messages so that I can contact you. Otherwise, if I draw your name or whatever, I do the randomization and I click on your account and I can't contact you, it's really hard for me to give you your prize. So make sure you set your account to public. Today we're going to be talking about HSOs, or homeostatic soil-based organisms. Out of all of the supplements I've ever talked about, this one is the most controversial by far. Probably because of my stance on it, but the backlash that I get and that John gets from this, from talking negatively about HSOs, is unlike anything else. Like, I could come out and say, like, don't take vitamin C, it's ridiculous, and everybody's like, okay, whatever. But if I say, like, don't take HSOs, people go nuts, they go crazy.
Yep, I've had Richard Nicolai put me into sites over it because I'm harming people. I've had numerous personal threats to my character over it. People are very dogmatic when it comes to these organisms.
I've had my Facebook account hacked. I've had somebody contact my employer, and they used some kind of a program that sent an email that made it look like it was from me, and they sent it to my boss, and they said some nasty stuff, and I was like, hey, that wasn't me. And I just had people just fly off the handle and do like some really bizarre things just by talking about this. But it's interesting because there's that saying that if you think everybody else around you is a jerk, you're probably the jerk. So today we're going to look critically at HSOs, and we're trying to be very open-minded about this supplement, and we're going to talk about sort of the pros and the cons that we're seeing from the supplement. I guess what spurred this is that John wrote a 7-part series. You didn't write a part 8, did you?
Not currently, no. I have not written a part 8. I thought about originally doing it on Mark Sassan's new HSO probiotic, but as of yet, I have not written a part 8.
Okay, so it's an 8-part series, and so far most of the series is anti HSOs.
Well, hold on. There is one strain that I'm fine with.
Oh, that's true.
Saccharomyces boulardii, which of course has its own set of drawbacks as a yeast.
Yeah, but anyway, we were contacted. One of his articles, the 7th article, the SEO rank is very high. We didn't do that by design, but if you search for that particular probiotic, it's like number 4 on the search engine. It goes right to John's page, and it says, the title of it is like, why I don't recommend MegaSporeBiotic. And so the maker of the probiotic started to get emails because some of the clients, and this is a probiotic, you can't buy it from Amazon. It's almost exclusively available through doctors, so you have to go to your physician and work it out that way. And I think he has over 1,000 affiliates that he has an arrangement with, and the doctors then give the MegaSpore. So the doctors were saying like, okay, people are writing in, people are asking me about this article. And so he contacted us, and you can see his reply at the comment section at the bottom of the blog. And John and I are really good about allowing people to say their piece. We don't block anybody or ban anybody, well, except for like the spam bots and stuff. And if you've ever run a WordPress page, you probably get a million of these a day, like, hey, my name's Kimberly and I can help improve your SEO. And you get these all the time.
Some free Nike sneakers, some free shirts and stuff like that. They're always on there.
But anyway, in this whole like convoluted dialogue, we ended up connecting with him yesterday, and we talked to him a long time about MegaSpore and about the probiotic blend in there. And he's a very smart guy. He's a really cool guy. Really enjoyed talking to him. He made some really good points about HSOs, some stuff that maybe we hadn't considered before. And it really got us into researching and looking at the different facets of HSOs. So John, are we going to change our opinion on HSOs?
As of right now, no. The guys, he's supposed to get us, Kieran is supposed to get us some data on MegaSpore, which may specifically change my mind on his supplement. I wouldn't directly recommend it, but I would, say that if you're going to take an HSO supplement, it is possible, depending on that data, if MegaSpore would be one of the better ones to currently take. But as far as my concerns, they're still there, and a lot of them are still valid.
Well, here's my deal. And if you know me from the Bulletproof forums, you've probably seen my Bulletproof surgery thread that I made about 3 years ago. And long story short, I had to have some surgery, and they were going to pump me full of antibiotics. They wouldn't do the surgery unless I agreed to that. I tried to get them not to, but I wanted to take a probiotic to rebuild my flora after the probiotics, which is what a lot of people do. And so I took this. It was supposed to be the premier probiotic at the time. It's no longer sold on, I can't find this in existence anymore. It's no longer sold. But the two strains in it are Bacillus longum and Bacillus subtilis. So is Bacillus an HSO? Would you consider that to be an HSO?
No, Bifidobacterium longum is not a HSO.
Okay. Well, technically though, none of this stuff is
correct. You're right.
HSO. Here's the deal with HSO. We'll just address this right now, and it's one of the things that Kieran brought up, and he's absolutely right, is that nobody in the probiotic industry is sourcing this stuff from soil. They said these are soil-based organisms, but as he said, people aren't going out to like what Kieran was like, what soil are they getting this from? Are they going out to the Sahara Desert and digging 50 feet underground? Like, where are they? No, they're getting this from a lab. Hopefully they're getting it from a lab. And if you search online, you can see some distributors of this stuff. There's a big one in Ohio, and you can go buy your own. And so the HSO is kind of a marketing thing. It's like, oh, these are natural soil-based organisms that we were once exposed to, and we're running around outside.
So I guess instead of now, we should reference them as being endospore producing bacteria. And there are more.
If we refer to them, if we refer to them as endospores, nobody will know what the heck we're talking about.
Correct.
So we kind of have to talk about them as HSO, because that's what everybody. I mean, it's a misnomer. It's a misnomer by now, and it's very difficult to. It's going to be very difficult to correct. Our small little show where we get like 100 views is not. We're not going to take down the HSO misnomer complex. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, that is correct. But if anybody's wondering, technically it would be endospore producing bacteria, which of course Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium are not.
So anyway, just to finish my story, I took some of this stuff, and I ended up I had a problem where my immune system was downregulated, because of the surgery and everything and some of the medication that I was on. And I got really sick afterwards. I had a low-grade fever. I had some digestive problems, and I ended up going to a doctor. And I was actually working with John at this time because I know that John absolutely obsesses about this stuff. And when he wakes up in the morning to when he goes to bed at night, the only thing he thinks about are his kids, microbiology, and wrestling. And
yeah, wrestling, of course. We got a Q&A question coming up about what my favorite, my favorite stuff that I do in my pastime. And wrestling, of course, is one of those, being from the South.
If they made a podcast involving, I guess, hosted by John's kids, that was about gut health and professional wrestling, John wouldn't leave his house. That's all he would do is listen to that all day.
That's correct.
But anyway, I call him up and I'm like, hey, I got a problem. And
this was way early back in the day too. We're talking at least, I'd say 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, 2 to 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's been.
So I'm having this problem, and he's coaching me through it, and he finds out that I took this stuff, and he's like, what are you doing, man? That's bad stuff. And I'm like, are you sure? Because they claim that they use very specific strains that are non-pathogenic, and the whole rigmarole that you hear from every supplement company ever. It's like, well, these other guys are all idiots, but my stuff is legit because it's we have these high QC protocols in place, and so John's like, no, you don't want that. So I went and got some PCR tests, and I got a stool sample first, and then they collected some samples from my small intestine, and they found out that Bacillus subtilis was growing in my small intestine, which, it's an anaerobic environment. That's not where we want most of our bacteria to be from.
Yeah, small intestine would be aerobic, and that's where where the endospores germinate, because they cannot survive in an anaerobic, where most of our bacteria love an anaerobic environment, in our large intestine, which is mainly anaerobic.
Right, and like your lactobacillus family.
Some of lactobacillus can also live in the small intestine as well, but you are correct that it cannot survive very well in an anaerobic environment in a non-endospore form. And also, since they did a small intestine biopsy, that's the gold standard generally to determine a bacterial infection, especially SIBO, which is either a gingium or an ileum aspirate culture. Of course, don't go get this done if you have SIBO, because it's highly invasive. But since Jason was so ill, they took that risk to have that done.
Yeah, it definitely didn't feel good. I ended up going through one of John's protocols, which is published in the Fix Your Gut book. And I used these biofilm chelators, I think from Claire Labs. I'm not even sure if they're available anymore. I think that's another one where you have to go to a doctor to get now.
No, Interface Plus is, they were originally doing it that way, but they moved it back to, you can buy it off of Amazon now.
Okay. Well, yeah, I called him up. A while ago, and I was like, why are you guys doing this? Why do we need permission to use a biofilm chelator? And they're like, well, that's just kind of what we want to do. That's our marketing platform, but whatever. Because by itself, I don't think it's a very risky supplement. I don't think people.
No, it's just a whole bunch of enzymes, some digestive, some systemic, and a little bit of calcium disodium EDTA to help chelate iron to keep it out of reach of bacteria in your intestinal tract. Which, of course, breaks down biofilms by doing so.
The form that I took, actually, I had to stack with EDTA, which is...
you took regular Interface. Interface Plus includes the EDTA.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure if they had it at that time, but I took EDTA, which could be a dangerous supplement if taken incorrectly.
Correct. Yeah, you don't want to mess with EDTA unless absolutely necessary. In the case of a systemic infection, the minute doses that are used by Interface Plus for a short period of time, it's fine. If you use it for high doses and for a long period of time, it will disrupt proper mineral absorption within the intestines.
Yeah, I went pretty aggressive on this protocol.
Yeah, against everyone here, I am very conservative. Hooper took my advice and ramped it up to a 10. Now, do I blame him for doing some things like taking thyme oil, which is very strong? No. Do I suggest both of my clients of using that strength? No. But then again, when you have a type of infection that he had, which we did at the time believe it's Bacillus subtilis, I still believe it was. There is one concern, of course, that Kieran had brought up, and also one of the most famous spore researchers, which is H.A. Hong, that a lot of companies mislabel their products. So you're thinking that you're getting Bacillus subtilis, but honestly, you're getting Bacillus cereus, which of course is one of the main causes of food poisoning. It's one way that you can get food poisoning from eating like rice, for example, that you let cool and don't properly refrigerate, and then these spores generate these toxins, which of course give you a real wicked case of food poisoning. I mean, you're going to be crapping out your butt for 2 days straight. You know,
I usually crap out my butt at least for 2 days in a row. I mean,
no, 2 days straight, as in that's all you're going to be doing is hugging your toilet for your dear life. And a lot of people don't realize rice. That's why when I go eat at the local hibachi place and have them cook my food in the back, so I don't get any gluten. If that rice is cold, that's been in the cooker, because I get white rice with with no added soy sauce. If it's been sitting out there for a while, oh hell no, I won't eat it, because Bacillus cereus, that's where the infection comes from, mainly it's rice, because these spores germinate when given the chance, and they can survive cooking. Endospores can survive extremely high temperatures, and boiling water is not nearly high enough to eliminate them. So a lot of people do get food poisoning from rice. So make sure you always cool your rice properly and don't leave it on the counter for hours. Unless, of course, you're Asian, which is a joke, because a friend of mine who's Korean, I consider him my brother, he would do it all the time and somehow survive. So I don't know if he's immune to actual toxins or not. But, it's just funny how H.A. Hong and even Kieran's correct about this. We don't know what people are selling. Especially if they're not listing actual strains on their websites. They're selling, actual certificates, verification that this is what it is. We don't know. And that's for every company, mainly that actually even produces probiotics or supplements in general. It's something that needs to be done in the industry, just for, so people know exactly what they're taking.
Yeah. There was this one guy who was selling the supplement. I mean, it's like it was big time startup, like startup. And right out of the gate, landing page, the whole nine, Tim Ferriss would have been really proud. And it's supposed to have, he's like, oh, this is like over 300 strains, and we're not listing them because they're proprietary and all this stuff. It's like, oh, come on, man. And it's like, why would anybody take this without understanding what's in it? But from a guy who worked in the probiotic industry for 15 years, telling us that some of these major, we're not going to name any names at this point, but some of these major companies putting out probiotics that they have no idea what they're selling. I mean, it's like there's no quality control at all.
Just read my blog if you want to know some of them. I'm not going to name names, but just read my blog.
Anyway, I don't know if that was proprietary information or not, but I'd say we'll edit it out, but this is kind of live, so I'm not going to edit it.
Hey, I recommend a lot of probiotics, so it could, or even ones that I don't recommend, so it could have been any of those.
Yeah, it could have been. But it's scary that, and I think one of the next things that we're going to be doing with Fix Your Gut is we're going to be buying some of these probiotics, culturing them, and seeing what's actually in them, and seeing if there's actually live cultures, because
and identifying if they're supposed to be the right strains.
Well, yeah, and especially with some of the lactobacilli family, that once they've gone through their MMC cycle, it's like 36 hours? How long does that usually take?
Usually around that. Could be shorter, but most studies have shown that a lot of people who are taking these probiotic supplements, while they're taking them, of course, majority of our, a good portion of our stool, of course, we talked about last Q&A, is dead bacteria. So, when they do these studies and they're taking these probiotic supplements, let's say, for example, has lactobacillus acidophilus and bifidobacterium. It's your cheap supplement, doesn't have any enteric coating guards to protect it from stomach acid, and, it has like 10 strains of lactobacillus in there and 3 strains of bifidobacterium, and no food for it to survive on. It's not refrigerated, So more than likely, by the time you're getting the supplement, it's dead.
Yeah.
And any reaction you have to it is your body's own immune system saying, well, what the heck is this? So the studies showed that when people stopped taking probiotics, any of that gain that they had while they were taking it is not there, because more than likely the probiotics they were taking were dead. It added to their fecal load count, so that when they were taking it, it appeared, oh, it looks like these bacteria are colonizing your intestinal tract. No, they're not. They were just dead the whole entire time, and they never colonized anything.
Yeah. So I was trying to make my story short, but after taking this stuff, and they made kind of the similar claims, like it's supposed to be this highly engineered probiotic, and completely with no toxin creating genes, all this other stuff, and I got sick from it. And it's really difficult to prove, and I wasn't going to go to court over this and anything to absolutely prove that it was this. But then other people are like, no, it wasn't it. It was something else. But the protocol that I went through was absolutely to treat that. And when I completed the protocol and I eradicated it, felt better, and it was gone. So
I mean, there is always a possibility that it could have been Bacillus cereus if it was not labeled properly. But then again, most of the time, Bacillus cereus, it can cause infections, but mainly it produces toxins.
Cereus never came up on the PCR though, and I think cereus is also aerobic, isn't it?
Yes, but it would generate. Well, that I don't know. I'd have to actually look up. I'm not sure about that, but I do know that it's more the toxin of that bacterium that is what makes you sick. When you ingest it, as most food poisoning bacterial strains occur, the toxins what make you sick. The toxins from E. coli are what make you ill. Generally, the E. coli is neutralized by your stomach acid in most cases, unless it's crazy, like E. coli 0157. Most of it's neutralized by your stomach acid. It's the toxins that make you ill. Same with salmonella. Same with botulism, and in infant botulism, when it survives, and the bacteria is what makes the infant sick, not the toxin. And that's why they have a lot lower. It's a lot easier to survive botulism if you're an infant compared, from spores from honey, compared if you're an adult.
Yeah. So I went on this quest to try to find any evidence at all that Bacillus subtilis could have any toxic genetics, and according to all the literature, it does not. There's no instance of it at all, and there are very few cases of it becoming opportunistic. Now, Kieran says that, and the medical literature agrees with him, that if there's no toxic genes, it's not pathogenic, and it cannot become opportunistic. And there's another thing. There's another discussion on hazard assessment in the Graham and Itzhak discussion article, saying that there's been a lot of misidentification over time, and that any studies printed before 1988 you should probably disregard, because they did not make a distinction between the different species of that genus. So I have found some studies that had they looked at immunocompromised people that did seem to have infections, and they did agar cultures, and it also seems to cause enterophytomyces, or an eye infections. So if it gets in your eye, according to the literature, it can cause problems. So if it can cause problems there, and if it can cause problems in a weakened immune system, how is that possible if it doesn't have any toxic genes? So if you look at the evolution, and this is like a ubiquitous species of bacteria. In fact, there's an article on PubMed where you can find it, like that it survived it came over on the Mars lander, and it's still there. Like, they found it again. They're like, well, there's life on Mars. Oh wait, that was from our first visit. Our bad. So it's very, very resilient. It's everywhere. And And so if it doesn't have any toxic enzymes, is it actually safe? And since we're exposed to it, whether we want to be or not, how do our bodies defend against it? Is it in spore form when we come in contact with it?
Yes.
There's a lot of questions about it, and the Japanese eat natto a lot. They eat it for breakfast and sick. So there's more evidence than not suggesting that it is safe to take, but there are some counter studies saying that in certain conditions you can get infected.
Correct.
I also found a study from this French hospital study where they found strains. They found strains which they assumed were from an Italian probiotic. I don't know how they knew that, but
Interagram. They studied it. It was Interagram. They actually named it in the study, which was Bacillus liptiformis. It was the probiotic that they actually mentioned within the study that they were able to find it, or said that the patient was taking that specific one.
Yeah. So, but they were able to treat it with a number of different antibiotics. My question would be that is when you're treating with antibiotics, would some of it just revert to spore form to hide and then come back later on? Or is that even an issue once you knock down the numbers enough for it not to cause issues for the overgrowth? Is that enough?
I don't know. There's never been any studies. I mean, there's very few, if any, in vivo human safety studies. Most of it's done in animals as far as toxicology reports are concerned. And if we're talking SIBO, spore bacteria, can cause just as many issues as any other bacteria can in overgrowth is concerned. Some people have had negative reactions to it having SIBO. I know because they contact me, and I started taking this. I thought it was supposed to help. It made me worse. I have SIBO. Okay, so maybe these strains don't produce toxins, but can they cause issues with overgrowth? Yeah, well, I believe they can.
Here's another thing. For an organism to be able to survive through time, it's going to have some kind of survival protection. It's going
to have to learn how to adapt.
Yeah, and so, hiding in spore form, that's one of the ways that it does it. But it also releases antibiotics because, other bacteria, fungi come in the vicinity and they need to protect their food source. So they do produce and release antibiotics, and it does have an impact on the microbiome around them.
Yes, it does. And that's one of the reasons proponents say it's okay to take with SIBO, because it will reduce these other bacteria. Okay, I can agree with that. But if the motility is still bad, in a person that's the main cause of SIBO, and let's say that these spore formers love to germinate in the small intestine, that if you eliminate, let's say, the opportunistic bacteria that were causing issues, you would still have an overgrowth of these bacteria, which are going to cause issues. Even Bifidobacterium longum can cause issues and overgrowths in the small intestine as far as SIBO is concerned, and it's relatively innocuous. It's harmless. I can't even find a single case study of infection caused by Bifidobacterium longum. I can't find any toxins that it produces, but it can still cause issues producing excess gas in the small intestine if it overgrowths in there. Now, generally, does that happen often? No. Most people have very little Bifidobacterium longum in their gut, if any, which is a main problem with a lot of people as far as their digestion is concerned. We need it. But I have seen some Genova GI effect stool panels, which, give or take, they're not perfect. Okay, I'm going to admit that. They're not. They use PCR and they use culture, but there are some issues with Genova GI effects. I like it. Other people in the field like to use it too, but we don't consider it being the holy grail. But I have seen instances of people having Bifidobacterium longum overgrowth. So it is possible for these spore formers to, eliminate opportunistic bacteria in the gut, but if motility is not fixed, because they are supposed to enter our body and leave. That's what they do. They don't if anything, they might germinate a little bit in the small intestine to grow a little bit, and then the MMC pushes them out, and they are expelled through our feces out back into the soil. That's their life cycle. Okay, they so, and we are encountering these spore formers every day. Even the EPA toxicology reports say they do have low risk of virulence. Okay, and I would agree with Jason that it's relatively low, but it's still there according to the EPA, and that their natural cycle is to pass through us mainly ungerminated. So I don't know. It's a head scratcher. All I can say is if you decide to take them, know the possible risks that may or may not there, and make sure that your supplement is what they say it is. Because there are certain strains of these spore formers that seem to be safer than others. Bacillus subtilis found in natto can produce biofilms. It can be very aggressive. Not as far as infection, but just as far as populating the gut. Some of the other strains of Bacillus subtilis, on the other hand, appear not to be able to form biofilms and appear to be a lot safer.
Yeah, the strain that's supposed to be in this and in some of the other ones out there is not. There's no genetics in here that would enable it to form biofilm. So it should be able to be taken out by antibiotics pretty easily. But that wasn't the case. That wasn't the case with me. So another thing that we're talking about that we were discussing is horizontal gene transfer. So is it possible for these bacteria to pick up plasmids from other organisms? So horizontal gene transfer occurs when you say you have a bacteria that dies, its cell membrane breaks down, and it ejects its genetic material. Well, prokaryotes don't have nuclei, so it's just kind of like floating stuff, and it can be captured by another bacterium and absorbed, and sometimes based on the P vector, it can take genetic material and incorporate it in its own. It can basically take genes from other species, and that's how we ended up with antibiotic resistance. If you go out to a farm and you take a cow and you pump it up full of antibiotics every day, well, it's going to kill off a lot of things, but something's going to survive. So the organisms that survive, eventually when they die, they're going to eject the genetic material to the things around them. They're going to pick it up. They're going to get these genes, and they're going to be antibiotic resistant also. And this is kind of the epidemic that's causing antibiotic resistance. And now 2012 articles are showing that we're finding vancomycin resistant strains, which is very scary because that was kind of like the
last resort. It's nephrotoxic, and it ain't no joke. Even though doctors give it out like candy, it's got some side effects to it.
Yeah, and the thing is, the farmers that are farming with this practice, which many farmers don't, but some farmers do, they are not bound by any prescription codes or anything, and they don't even use like regular prescriptions. They just get farm grade stuff. They don't get medical grade stuff, so they pump them with whatever they want.
Yeah, Lord knows what they're pumping them with,
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's stuff. Yeah, no, but anyway, so would it be possible for the Bacillus genus for this? There is possibility. I've seen studies. It's not very common because it has very stable genetics, and so when an organism has survived for this long, it's actually, they have a genetic advantage by not picking up stray genes, because it would weaken the species, and so it's very difficult. But it's possible for them to pick it up between similar genuses, and there's been studies out there showing that that's true, and showing that they can even pick up toxin creating genes. So it would be possible for a non-biofilm forming bacterium to become biofilm forming, and it would be possible for it to be toxin forming. However, you're talking about a very small instance happening in a very large community of bacteria. So they would have to have such an advantage to overpopulate the rest of the original type of bacteria that was introduced for that to happen. And, you know, again, every time we add on another addendum, like, and then this would have to happen, and then this would have to happen, the probability of that goes down and down and down. So it's, you know, again, is that what happened in my case? Probably not. But then most people say, well, that's not what happened to you. You were infected by something else. So.
And I mean, just to go ahead and speak, you know, Lactobacillus acidophilus has just as many case reports as the Bacillus species of causing infections. And it's also known as well to take other, you know, incorporate through horizontal gene transfer other antibiotic resistance from like strep, for example, you know, which is not a good thing. You know, and there have been reported cases of that occurring. You know, so it's just pretty much comes down to, you know, which one would you rather take? In my honest opinion, Lactobacillus acidophilus, if it even survives when you take a probiotic, which I don't really recommend probiotics that much anymore when I consult people. You know, I'm more about trying to build up someone's flora as long as they have a variform appendix using specific prebiotics like galactolysaccharides, which least likely feed opportunistic bacteria like Klebsiella and E. coli. You know, so it's just hard to determine that. You know, so pretty much when it comes down to is when you take any of these HSO probiotics, you run the risk of hoping that the probiotic you take is what they say it is.
Well, and how do they find out? I mean, the end user at home, they don't have access to a lab.
That's why most of these corporations should, in good faith, post their research or allow someone else to do it.
Well, more than just their research, they should be doing.
Well, verification, should I say?
Yeah, they should be doing like their own PCR screens, and they should be posting them.
And I guess it should be third party. You know, third party. It'd be best to have it from an unbiased opinion, possibly like
absolutely from a third party. Yeah, but I mean, wouldn't you want to know? I mean, let's say that you're the maker of a supplement and you get accused of having. You know, let's say you make vitamin C, the John Brisson vitamin C, made from real tomatoes.
No, it would be made from corn dextrose fermentation because it's ascorbic acid, but it's non-GMO corn dextrose fermentation. So I get this product and I want to make sure that it's not contaminated with anything. Like one of the curious Bacillus subtilis studies that was done where they concluded that there was 2 contaminated Herbalife products and both of them caused liver issues in 2 patients, and the common leak was Bacillus subtilis. You know, within the vitamin C, you know, you want to make sure, of course, that the vitamin C that I sell under my brand is the correct dosage and it's not contaminated. I don't want to get people sick from me, you know, giving them a product, you know, and then, you know, I got to stand behind it because, you know, it protects me against lawsuits. I mean, now granted, you know, me and Hooper will argue the difference between this because he's more libertarian than I am, you know, but, you know, there has to be some sort of, at least with medicines in the FDA, there's numerous websites that you can go to and look at the doctor's case reports of side effects from medications. Now, granted, that happens way before the FDA decides to test a medicine through further clinical trials and so forth and so on to determine if there's issues with said medications. But at least people can get an idea of what people are reporting as side effects for certain medications. There's nothing that exists for that for supplements. And, you know, most supplements are safe as long as they are what they say they are, you know, within moderation. But we don't know. It's a Wild West. It's more of a Wild West than medications are.
There are some herbs that are being sold that you can get on Amazon that have shown to have no medical value or no positive health value, and they've also been shown to cause harm. So there are some supplements that are being sold, but you know, the FDA has the GRAS list, or the generally recognized as safe list. But you got to also remember that trans fat was on the GRAS list until 2013.
I mean, you're correct. You're correct about that.
Bulletproof just released an article about that.
I agree. All I'm saying is, at least when it comes to medicine, we have some idea with doctors reporting issues stemming from medications. With supplements, we have no one reporting issues or no uniform database that someone can log into and say, hey, this made me sick. This supplement I take caused this. There's nothing, to my knowledge, that exists of that. It'd be great if someone started that. And I'm not a fan of the FDA by far. We all listening here, and anybody who knows me know that I am not. But at least that exists. So it'd be nice if companies could either publish, third-party verifications that a supplement is what, they say it is, or if they're giving supplements out through doctors, for example, some sort of database where if they're having issues, if doctors are having issues with people taking, the supplements and side effects, and it's in large numbers, then maybe that supplement should be looked upon, with greater scrutiny, and I mean, I guess you would agree with me on that, wouldn't you, Jason?
I think that the consumer has just as much responsibility as the vendor to make sure that what they're buying is correct.
You're right.
And I think that you have to do your own due diligence, and you have to be your own advocate for your health.
Because too many people in this country trust way too much stuff. I mean, when it comes to anything, you have to do your research, people. And I've always said that since the beginning.
But if you do contact somebody, and when I buy supplements or anything, I always ask for COAs, for certificates of authenticity, and I want to see if there's trace contaminants or everything. And the ones that I buy, they don't have any problems giving them to me, and they say, here you go. And I'm very wary of companies that are like, no, this is proprietary or whatever.
Yeah, that's why I love pure encapsulation so much, because they actually, for the most part, when they give a PDF of an actual supplement, they list sources of the supplement, where it came from, what it is, what it was obtained from, and you can even contact them. And most of their supplements, they will give you verification of it through a third party. So there are supplement companies that will do it, but pure encapsulation goes above most supplement companies just putting out at least simple information.
They do, and they're also very expensive.
Yeah, they are. They are.
For those of you out there thinking about starting a supplement company, just forget it right now, because the problem is, if you're going to start, if you're going to start a supplement company with good intentions, and you're going to want to make a good supplement, understand that you have to compete against people that don't have good intentions and that don't want to make a good product. They want to make money. And so your real vitamin C product that's nickel free is going to be competing against this supplement company X that doesn't care, and it's just loaded with junk, and they just make it as cheap as possible and may not even have vitamin C in it.
Correct.
But nobody's going to check on them, and so they just send it out, and that's fine. And so your supplement's going to cost more money to produce, and that's kind of what I found with the CBD supplement company that I founded. And we wanted to make a product that would actually have therapeutic value, and we did. And it's not going gangbusters like some of the other CBD companies out there, because it's a lot more expensive. And it's more expensive because we actually have therapeutic doses in there, and we don't fudge our numbers, and we don't have toxic junk in there, and we have our formula is very intense to make, and our critical CO2 extraction process, it's not the cheapest thing to do, but we have to compete against these other companies that are mislabeling and that don't have a superior product. The thing is, though, we're small, and it's good to be small, and you could just sell to the people, and they know that it works, and they're like, okay, cool, and they use it, and it has value. But it's very difficult, because there's so many snakes out there in the supplement industry. And I feel for a supplement company owner, especially if an article comes out on Fix Your Gut and it says like, okay, don't take this. I don't recommend this supplement. It doesn't say don't take it, but it says I don't recommend this supplement. And you're like, come on, I got so much research in this field. I've been working my butt off. I tried to create a product, and there's all these other people out there that are putting out junk, and at least this product's real. And then I got this site that's like 4th ranked SEO, and they're coming out with negative stuff about me. Come on, give me a chance. And I feel for them, I really do. But we also, we got to be free to express our own opinions without, fear of getting shut down or anything, or fear of getting sued. So, we have to be able to say, that we still have concerns with this, and we'd like to see more data.
So, yeah, I mean, I feel the same way, and hopefully, hopefully, eventually, soon, if we are able to obtain that data, I'm not above changing my opinion. I'm not above changing my mind. If someone can prove to me that it's worth it and what they're doing is, above the board, change my mind.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard thing to do, especially for a blogger who does coaching, and you want to maintain your credibility, and then having to say, I was wrong about this. It's not easy to do. You're gonna be like, well, are people still gonna listen to what I say? They're like, well, he was wrong about that or something. But I think that it's good to have integrity, and whenever you're wrong about something, just to come out and say like, hey, this wasn't right. I'm still learning. I'm still researching, and here you go. So psychologically, it's a difficult thing to do, but we're still researching this. I'm still researching. John's still researching it, and it's going to be interesting to see the data that we get, and that's really going to be the king. I mean, data is always king, and we can see the data come out. We can say, wow, this stuff really is special because of this or whatever, and then we know it's good.
I mean, I definitely agree with you, Jason. I want to see the data. I want to be as objective as possible. Some of our concerns, even if the data comes back, are still there. But at least can say if the data is what Kieran says it is, and it is up to snuff, might be a possibility for me to change my mind and say, look, if you're going to take an HSO, which there are a lot of people who like taking them, then I would, recommend you taking Megaspore, if you are going to take one.
The other cool thing about Megaspore, I think, is that he is working with the medical industry instead of against the medical industry. That sometimes it seems to be like naturopathic, allopathic, and they just fight. But he seems to be working with it. He's working with the FDA. He's doing it right for sure. And instead of just saying like, allopathic medicine has got it wrong, we need to do this. Here's a supplement to correct your mistakes or something. So I admire that as well.
I do too as well. And, it's tough. It's a tough business, and it's just hard to know. There's only so much data someone can have for them to come to conclusion. I try my best. I study all the time. I work darn hard to fix your gut. And there are going to be some occasional times where I miss things. I'm not superhuman. I have a family. I have other things that take my time as well. I have clients that I have to take care of and I have to coach and improve their lives and everything. It's tough, but I'm always trying to learn, and and I'm always trying my best, to help people. And with this, our reservations of HSOs in quotation marks are still there, and they're still somewhat valid. But saying, is it possible for MegaSpore to be much more dangerous than a standard probiotic supplement as far as risk? The risk might not be much higher. We'll have to wait to see the data to see. So am I going to recommend it in any of my clients going forward, even with the data? I don't know. But I will at least put the data out there and be objective and say, according to the data that was provided to me, if it's provided true and right, seems like a decent supplement.
Yeah. I mean, just by talking to the guy, you know that he's genuine.
Oh, he's passionate. Yeah, I mean, just talking to Karen, I know he's smart and he wants to help people. He really does. There's no doubt about that. I don't believe that. He really wants to help improve people's lives. And he has seen there. I'm not going to say that there's people have taken MegaSpore any HSO supplements and have not seen any improvement. No, there's a lot of people that have seen improvement using those type of supplements. And I have heard of some people who have privately contacted me and had coaching who did not see improvement, or those supplements made them ill. Jason, of course, is one of those. But the same can be said about any probiotic. Lactobacillus acidophilus has infections associated with it. It just comes down to risk versus benefit. And if some people are willing to take this slightly elevated risk with HSOs compared to other standard probiotic supplements, it's up to them. But my warning still stands.
Yeah, I just have a different philosophy when it comes to the microbiome in the gut, and maybe I'm crazy, but I'm not saying it's a mistake to look at the individual species, but I think we need to take a step back from the micro scale and look at all of the microbiome as a whole and say, what genetics do we have being expressed in the microbiome, and what genes are we missing in the microbiome, and focus on that like it's its own system. Just like in anything else in our body, what genes do we have? What genes are we missing? And if I need to supplement with a microorganism, I am adding new genetic material into the mix.
Correct.
So was I missing something before? Am I missing a gene that I need to get? Am I missing, are the microbacteria in my gut missing some genes that I need? And if so, what's the safest way to what's the safest way to get that genetic material into my gut?
Yeah.
Now, and maybe after all this stuff blows over, maybe we can have Kieran on the show, because he's a really bright guy and he'd be fun to talk to. But what genetic material are we interested in that this stuff has? Well, it does have some, it does produce some antibiotics. It does produce vitamin K2.
It's relatively stable. It can survive gastric acid in endospore form. There are positives with endospores in that it can survive gastric acid, and also bile introduction in the small intestine that a lot of probiotics die off from.
Yeah. What about like E. coli Nestle from Germany? It produces K2 also. It won't survive?
It would survive if you put it in a specific acid-resistant type capsule that would survive until passage into the small intestine.
Yeah, I don't like that kind of delivery system.
I don't either. I wish there were better delivery systems, but
what if you could do it in a suppository type deal, or like a colonic type of thing?
Yeah, that would work as long as your MMC is functioning properly, and that's the thing about fecal bacteria transplants, is as long as you don't have SIBO and your MMC is working properly, they're fine. They'll help a lot of people. But if that bacteria makes its way back up into the small intestine from a leaky ileocecal valve like it's not supposed to, then yeah, that's not good. That would probably be the best delivery system if you could get a cultured E. coli Nissel from feces, which is what it was originally cultured from in the 1920s and the 1930s, and use it and get it into the bowels properly. It would be good to do it. We do know that, for example, Lactobacillus plantarum is acid. It can survive acid. It can survive stomach acid. And I love Lactobacillus plantarum, especially Lactobacillus plantarum 299V. It's a great probiotic. And it can survive, and it's relatively shelf stable. I think a proper probiotic supplement using it and having it shipped directly from the manufacturer to the store refrigerated, just so it would survive longer. But it is relatively shelf stable for being a lactobacillus. Lactobacilli, and it can survive stomach acid. Some of the lactobacillus strains can survive stomach acid. Some of them are able to. So and Lactobacillus plantarum also produces these bactericides, these antimicrobial agents as well. So there are some comparative lactobacillus, like plantarum, for example, that would do a lot of the same things that these bacillus would do. In my belief, I do recommend them. I recommend E. coli Nissl. I recommend Bifidobacterium longum. So it's just, you just have a lot of problems with most supplements. They're dead. There's too many of them. If you see a probiotic that has 10 to 15 cultures in there, they're not live. They're not. They're dead. They run out of food. They crowd each other too much. Especially if they're not refrigerated. Don't even bother taking it. In most cases, so it's just difficult. It's just the probiotic industry right now is in a state of crisis. And even Karen would agree with me on that. It's just a wild west. There's a lot of bad supplements and a lot of bad internal regulation. It's just, the future would be, of course, what Jason and I are suggesting, and possibly if someone still has a variform appendix, culturing back your microbiome after antibiotics, because that's the function of variform appendix. It's separated from the rest of the beginning of the large intestine, away from the colon, so that when we have diarrhea, some of our original probiotic bacteria can survive there and can repopulate the gut properly.
Yeah, and there's a new technology coming out involving like bacterial printing, and right now it's with E. coli, but you know how they have 3D printers, and you see these things like, wow, I made an AR-15 for my 3D printer, and the government goes crazy. But they have these machines now where you can encode your own bacteria, and it's pretty smooth, and you can pick and choose the different genes you want, crank it out. And that's something that we were looking at about a year ago. I met a guy at South by Southwest who prints these E. coli that turn glucose into CBD, and that's pretty smooth. And you could get your supplement that way, circumventing the whole hemp being illegal thing in the United States, drastically reducing our costs. So that may be one of the futures of probiotics also, are these printing machines where you can just print the genes you want and get it, and make sure that into like an acid stable type culture, like an acidophilus or lactobacillus or something, where it survived the stomach acid and get down to where it needs to go and have the genetics that you need in there. And that could also potentially cause problems too.
Yes, it can. We don't know. I mean,
this is several years out, because it's going to take a lot of testing. People are going to say it's not safe, and it's basically the GMOs of bacteria, and people are going to go crazy. But we'll have to see.
And there are bacteria that we know are important for the digestive system, and a lot of that I have to give thanks to Dr. BG or Grace, at the Gut Institute, for determining, most of the bacteria that are commensal original bacteria that are very important for our digestion. I can name some of them right now, but I'd go to our website, of course, read her core, what she considers to be core bacteria. But some of them would be, Lactobacillus acidophilus, for example, Bifidobacterium longum, Akkermansia, and Faecalibacterium prausnitzkii. Most of the time when I see people with SIBO, they have low markers for these bacteria because the opportunistic bacteria crowd them out. They're still there. It's almost impossible for you to totally lose your Bifidobacterium longum, for example, for it to be, completely gone. But it can be beat down to very small numbers that can cause issues. So there are bacteria that are pretty well known that we know help us out, that serve a good purpose in our bodies and are there to help improve our lives. And the future is, through studies, it might have been Bacillus as well, and there's a possibility, so it's hard to tell. But I do applaud Kieran for his research and his dedication in trying to make MegaSpore one of the best Endospore probiotics on the market. Hopefully the data shows, and I'll write a second part to it.
Absolutely. Want to thank everybody for watching. the show. I know it's been a controversial topic, but you know, please just, if we said something that you don't agree with, just post below the YouTube video, just post in the comments section, I don't agree because of this, and we'll talk about it. And the discussion's going to lead to intellectual growth. And rather than just taking a side like, I'm right, you're wrong, whatever, and then, you know, hacking somebody's Facebook account and so forth, that's completely non-productive. So we would appreciate your comments. If you got any questions or anything, leave in the comment section here or on fixyourgut.com. Again, thanks for watching. Thanks for the donations. Thanks for subscribing. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.